Welcome back. It's the Scaling Secrets podcast. Mitchell Nikitin is here from Via.Delivery. Now, Mitchell is the CEO and co-founder at Via.Delivery, where you can buy online and pick up anywhere. It's called a BOPA service for online retailers and D2C brands. So Mitchell is going to be filling us in on some of these secrets about supply chain, e-commerce, last mile delivery, package theft prevention, and so many other just amazing new innovations as far as changing the world and getting everyone plugged in, getting our packages on time, and so much more. So, Mitchell, glad to be speaking with you.
Yeah, appreciate the invitation.
And I appreciate you accepting the invitation and being here and just filling us in on some of these scaling secrets and things we need to know. So, what are you all about? What does your company do? What problem does it solve?
So we are a technology for something that we call buy online, pick up anywhere experience, right? That is where you go to the e-commerce website of your favorite brand, want to order something, and usually get to the list of shipping options. You're usually looking at standard, expedited, overnight kind of shipping options. So to this list, we basically add an alternative. And this alternative is a local pickup point available nearby your house. So now living in more, say, urban area, in San Francisco, you can select, instead of shipping this order to your home, you can select to pick it up from local Walgreens pharmacy, right? And now this package is going to be shipped to Walgreens, and once it's there, we'll basically just notify you so that you can come and pick it up as a part of your daily routine or commute.
Very cool. And it seems like at some point Amazon had a monopoly on this, right? Amazon had the lockers in different places, and I used this even 10 plus years ago. I was off at a hotel in San Diego or something, and I think I forgot like my USB charger for my phone, ordered it. I didn't want to like deal with like going to the hotel, dealing with the lobby, all the big city stuff. Had it sent to a locker at like a local CVS, went and picked it up, and it felt like the future, except for it was limited to Amazon. So is it safe to say that this kind of technology, this network that you're having, is to enable like the non-Amazon e-commerce companies to use this technology?
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. So Amazon had this experience for quite a while, and I personally enjoyed this experience multiple times, right? But we just find this gap for everyone but Amazon, right? All these Shopify retailers who basically did not have a technology for that, as well as they didn't have the access to the network of pickup locations that are required. We are not doing it in a form of lockers today, or not so much of lockers comparing to just a regular pickup location. But basically, yes, the principle remains the same now. Any Mama's and Papa's Shopify online store has an opportunity to present it on their checkout and basically kind of match the experience, the customer experience to big guys like Amazon.
Very cool. And so as you are, I wouldn't say like competing with Amazon, but trying to replicate this thing that Amazon has kind of created with the like the distribution network, I imagine that there's just so many problems involved with this, right? I imagine there's like a chicken and the egg, and there's also this kind of question of, well, why has someone not invented this before you?
Oh, that's a very interesting thing. So well, FedEx and UPS, being two major logistics companies in the US, right? They started to think to this direction maybe 2017, 2016, 2017. So they started to establish like individual networks of pickup location. You can now pick it up from FedEx office, right? From UPS store, altogether with multiple other locations. But the problem that like the missing part was the technology aspect. So just think about it from the perspective of the Shopify store owner. Even if locations are out there, how can you use it? How can you offer this service to your customers, right? You need to write a code for that. Then how will the shipping label work? How will delivery work? How will you even notify your customers that it's there at the end of the day, right? So having all host of these different technical solutions required to make it happen. I think that was the main reason why this experience was not utilized. Quite frankly, altogether with some idea that Americans don't like their packages to be shipped anywhere but their home, right? I heard it many times. And what's interesting, I heard it like many times from very established online retailers who were saying, like, hey, my customers would never use it. Why would they even do that? Luckily now we have a data that proves that customers are actually using it and using it big times, and that has a lot of convenience. But I think like this misconception altogether with a lack of technical capabilities and platforms, that is why it's only now in 2024, right, when these kind of services are starting to get some adoption and starting to get a well-deserved recognition.
And how did you solve some of these problems? Like you're mentioning about the interfacing, the communication, the label, the customer contact. How did you solve these things?
Well, in spite of the name via delivery, we are actually a tech company, right? So we don't own any single truck. We don't own any single distribution facility. We completely rely on major carriers as our partners in the delivery process. But as a tech company, we decided, hey, how we will make it easy for any online retailer to basically adopt this shipping option. And we started to build this kind of plugins and integrations, right? We started with Shopify, and I remember when we just launched our first customer, the next integration we had to build was with ShipStation because, well, the different kind of shipping labels need to be created to ship to those locations. Otherwise, your package gets to Walgreens, but then people working in Walgreens, they will decide it's a package for them, not for a pickup. So then we started to build like the integration into ShipStation, and that integration just kept going. Salesforce, Commerce Cloud, ShipHero, multiple 3PL providers, etc. So effectively, we had to become an infrastructure, the IT infrastructure for this buy online, pick up anywhere experience. So that now when you are an online retailer on Shopify using ShipStation for label printing, you can just do it in a couple of clicks. You click to install the Shopify app, you click to install us as a ShipStation application, and you are ready to go. Because without it, maybe you don't have your own like software development department, or maybe, as it oftentimes happens with the larger brands, they do have their own software development department, but it will take them forever to prioritize something like that and then develop it over like a year or so. So that's really where we came into play.
Wonderful. You figured out the integrations and made it easy for them, because you think about on the surface, it's like, oh, it's just this API call. It's like, yeah, but you have to fit it in with all this other stuff you have, and you have to test it and try out the different edge cases. It can be months or years just for someone to get around to doing that, and you've made it easy. And you think about how there's all these software vendors that have created the WordPress plugin, created the Shopify plugin, just done all these things to make it easier to hook into all these different systems. And what comes to mind is when you think about these huge innovations like the Apple iTunes or like Amazon, like what impresses me the most isn't necessarily like the code, but like the people adopting it, right? Like in order for Apple iTunes to work, imagine all the different deals with all the different record labels that had to go into place, right? With Amazon, imagine all the working with all the different publishers. And so was there difficulty with that in like striking the deals, getting the adoption from all these different companies?
Oh, absolutely. So we are right now focused on like more even mid-market enterprise kind of space from sales perspective. And our partnership, most of them are with enterprise companies as well. So yes, it takes time, right? It takes time, it takes efforts to build this partnership. And after partnership, you actually build the integration behind it. So that's probably a complex side of the business. And just combine it with the fact that Amazon had it, but pretty much no one else had it, and no one else knew about that. Such experience could be provided to a customer. So we effectively had to create this entire category, right? That's what we call buy online, pick up anywhere experience at the end of the day. So we were pushing this new category to the market. We were trying to convince larger partners to work with us. At the same time, we were and still convincing customers, meaning online retailers, to install our plugin and give it a try and just see that the adoption would be there. So yeah, that's a challenging task, but that's our kind of day-to-day routine.
And how do you know if you're on the right track as far as an amazing world-changing idea like this, because you think like, well, you could have like invented a cell phone in the 70s, but it's just the timing is wrong.
Hmm.
And so how do you like I'm sure like when you were doing this kind of like the sales, for lack of a better term, right, of getting all these people on board, and there were like these difficulties, there were the objections, there's like you said, they like people assume that Americans only want the package delivered to their home. How did you know that you were on the right track versus trying to push an idea that might not have worked out?
Well, I don't have it like a universal advice for that, but what we did internally is just to take it, like break it into a lot of small steps, right? And just see what's next should be done. You basically start sometimes with just the idea of what you want to do, what you want to end up with, and you basically just start yourself a question. Okay, what's the next step that I should do? Right? Should I go and try to find pickup location? Should I start to build the technology for that? Should I go and start to find like first customers, or at least talk to potential customers in the first place? And then like it doesn't seem to be like exciting at every single moment, but when you take a look backwards, like a couple of years ago, you just start to see the entire dynamics. And probably something that keeps you going is just achieving these small steps, small milestones. And that's what keeps you going.
That's helpful, and it's a very kind of software mindset of things, right? You say, well, there's all these cool features that I could do. There's all these things that,
Mhm.
like my company and my interface, we could do all these things. But you think of, okay, well, what logically comes first? What's a order of importance? How do I make that minimum viable product? And then when I'm building on the different features, you're fighting what is fun to create, right? Do I add this like flashy button or this
Mhm.
amazing feature that, well, it's fun for us to code into our application, but maybe won't be very useful, and you just kind of navigate that and figure out the different milestones that you're creating. And so in this journey, were there, I mean, it sounds like it was just like full of like challenging problems, but is there anything that comes to mind as far as just like a story where you felt like completely stuck, not sure where to go on, like felt like you hit a dead end?
Well, it was like a story when we just launched the first customer, right? And I mentioned we built this Shopify plugin, and the ShipStation as a system should have been supporting this type of label that was required for us. So we are launching him, and it turns out that the labels, the shipping labels this company is now producing, are not compliant with this solution. So they basically, if they come to a pickup location, then they're never going to be picked up because, well, again, people working in those locations, they would decide it's a package for themselves. And we try to kind of solve it from a couple of ways. I remember we tried to convince this platform that they might need to update something on their side, or try to work with our partners on carrier side to try to again convince them. But all that takes time, and all that just kind of doesn't work. And we got stuck maybe for 6 months or so before, in the middle of this time period, we decided, hey, we would just kind of hack this thing around. We would become a virtual carrier on this platform. We would add ourselves in, and then we would be able to produce our own shipping label that we will be able to control. And those shipping labels will effectively just replicate shipping labels of major carriers. And that's how we will get in spite of the fact we are not a carrier, we are really a technology. But yeah, we got stuck for quite a while, and this first customer just asked us, well, guys, I will turn you off so far, and once you figure it out, then I will turn you back on. Yeah, that was a sketchy time for us.
And you know, just the more we talk about this, my brain keeps drawing analogies to like different companies, and what comes to mind is Zapier, right? They hook up with like thousands of different kind of like APIs, and from a programming perspective, you're thinking, you know, it must have been fun for them to make this connect with that, but then there has to be like some amount of like recurring testing later, right? Because as you're building this huge monster and it like connects to all these things, there's all these ways that it can break. And so has that been a challenge for you? And like they're setting up the integration, but then at once it's set up, like they might change one little thing, things might go wrong, something might break. So like how did you factor in that aspect of it? Like of like you make the bridge work, but it has to like continue functioning.
Oh, absolutely. That's kind of our day-to-day job, right? We build the integration, and as you say, something may change. and we need to adapt fast. Like Shopify, they release new version of the checkout, so we immediately need to focus on this new version to adapt our solution, and that's outside of our control, right? We basically built something and now need to modify it, and it was not a part of our development plan. The way you kind of approach it is just prioritize, sometimes day by day, right? What's the most important for the business tomorrow? And that's super important, like when you early stage or a little bit even later than that. Like what's going to be a main driver for the business tomorrow? And that's when we like have a every morning discussion with the tech team. Okay, how things are at, like what are we building today? What are we looking at? Sometimes it's just like these manual adjustments that you unfortunately have to do in spite of all the previous planning, right? All the previous ideas of, okay, we will accomplish this feature and then we will go with this feature. The reality sometimes is brutal, right? The reality sometimes you need to switch all your development efforts now just to fix this new update that is coming from this side. Well, luckily, at some point, we basically decided that we are not going to build anything unless there is some certain amount of dollars from customers' perspective or revenue perspective, right, that is standing behind this new feature. And we have sort of internal rule, right? We don't build anything before somebody asked for that. Of course, we didn't start there, but I think for the last couple of years, we only apply this idea. It's either urgent and needed to, again, keep the company going because of some adjustments been made, or because one of the customers asked for that. One of the customers asked for this new integration, and that would generate revenue for us. So yes, now we are doing it instead of just creating new features that nobody proved and then just spending time on developing those.
Wonderful. And I'm starting to get an idea about your mindset, your philosophy, right? There's been a lot of emphasis here on focusing on what you can control and on prioritizing and on figuring out your internal rules that guide you, which, as you said, can change, right? When you're on day one of the company or year one versus year five, then those sorts of rules might change for you. And so as far as what you're like, what you've created and all of these kind of like features and integrations that you've added, is there any part of your company that you wish had more attention than it currently does?
Well, I think this entire concept needs basically more attention, and we do our best to kind of educate market about it. We are now in a unique position, probably, in a sense that we have a lot of data on how customers are adopting this feature. What is the percentage of customers using this shipping option instead of home delivery? What is the percentage of such customers in rural areas versus like suburban areas? New York City versus San Francisco versus Sacramento, for example, right? We have all this data, and using this data, we now kind of try to educate markets. And because it's generally a healthy trend, like buy online, pick up anywhere, cuts shipping cost. It does increase security of delivery. Like if you follow in the latest news, like there's a porch piracy news pretty much every day. And next holiday season is coming, so we expect like even more cars driving behind the Amazon truck and other trucks of carriers just grabbing everything from the porch, as well as from sustainability perspective. So yeah, we try our best to grab as much attention to this entire concept in general, and we believe that's kind of a future for the online retail. What's interesting that in Europe, this revolution had happened like 10 years ago. So in Europe, there are countries where today there are more deliveries are coming to pickup location, like Denmark, for example, than those going to home addresses. It just people got used to it at some point that, hey, it's more cost efficient and it's more secure to ship it to, say, a local locker or to a local boulangerie in France, right? And then pick up your package from there. In the US, there is still a way to go. So maybe that is something that we try to drag attention to.
And that's a lot of fun to think about, just some of the sort of the content, the PR, the marketing. It's like it takes some thinking to kind of like enlarge that sphere of what you talk about, right? Because like the smallest core of the sphere is about your own company, your own product, and like that's exciting for you, but for like the average person, it's like, well, who cares about your company? It's about what you do for me. And then when you
Mhm.
kind of shift your focus to the problems and the objections people have and like the stories they tell themselves about why it won't work, and then you can shift on kind of pursuing those problems and on kind of the trends, right? You talk about the porch piracy. You talk about, well, here's some other countries or even some areas of the US where it has worked. And that can be really interesting. And especially you said there about you take your data and then that becomes talking points, right? That becomes helpful knowledge to pass along to others. And so in your collection of this data and getting people to use it, have there been any surprises that have come across as far as like the usage of your product or just like people in general?
Yeah, there were a couple of surprises actually. So right now we just recently analyzed two things. One of them, we figured out that this shipping option, if it is a part of the checkout, right, local pickup, it actually is the second most popular option after the cheapest standard delivery. Because on basically every checkout you usually have like the cheapest delivery that takes the longest to get to your porch, and then you have usually expedited service and the overnight service. So based on what we've analyzed and based on what we've seen on many online retailers, expedited and overnight combined are taking like from 5 to 6% of the overall demand, which is small. Whereas pickup location option, they take 10%, 12%, sometimes 15%, and for some categories like wine, sometimes like 25% more. So now we say that buy online, pick up anywhere actually among customers is the second most popular shipping option. And that's not necessarily what we expected from day one, that we will be like getting more eyeballs and more demand comparing to expedited services. That was the first one. And the second one, probably we recently sliced the data in a way that we took rural areas zip codes versus suburban areas zip codes versus like urban or densely populated urban areas like New York City. And we just try to understand the percentage of people selecting local pickup in a given population density. And we expected like, and not only us, right? A couple of brands that we talked to, they expected that, hey, it's not for rural areas. It might be a good fit for New York City, but it's definitely not going to be a fit for somewhere where like there's no nearby pickup location and the lifestyle is different. But what data showed us is that yes, like metro areas, they were adopting it on average of about like 13 to 14%. Rural areas, it was not zero, it was like 9% ish. So it was way more than we initially expected. And that came as a surprise. And then I saw just one of the feedback from one of the customer, and that's what was pretty unique. He said, well, listen, I live in a gated community, in a gated farm, right? Every courier that comes to my gate, they usually just don't go beyond that. And they either drop my packages outside the gate, or if it's a signature related product, they just ship it back. That's why I sometimes cannot receive my packages still living in the rural area. So this customer selected to use a local pickup instead, and he was excited about it, and he keeps using it. So that made me basically thinking that us, as well as like a lot of direct-to-consumer brands, as well as the entire industry, we sort of think that we know our customers, which is not always true, right? Sometimes it's better to give customers some option, some choice, and then just to observe what actually happens.
Wonderful. And I like your mindset here. It's a scientific method basically, right? You have your hypothesis and you run an experiment and then you say, okay, well, was that hypothesis proven true or not true? And that's a great way of thinking about things because like one extreme is to just get lost in the data and all kinds of statistics. And the other extreme is to have your own assumptions, but it's kind of a fun this thought experiment to say, well, like what does this mean? Or is there this type of person? Is there this like recurring story that we can then extract out of the data, so that way when we're like marketing to someone who has like this specific problem, they live on a farm in a gated community, the courier leaves it at the gate, it gets sent back. Like that's kind of fun to think about, and you get that from the combination of the data plus the anecdotes, the customer feedback. It's a cool way of solving this problem of getting the word out about this really cool idea. But it's sometimes ideas kind of take a lot of adoption and a lot of marketing for them to really stick. And so in us talking about what you've accomplished here, right, this BOPA concept and via delivery, is there a hidden question in our conversation here? Is there something that like you really wished that I had asked you?
Cannot come up with any ideas out of the top of my mind, other than maybe like why we are doing it, and that might be a little bit from the personal perspective. I don't believe in the future where like e-commerce keeps growing and it's all going to be linked to a home delivery, because if you think about it, now in the ultimate case, half of the population is now ordering online, and a lot of other people are actually delivering for them, which kind of doesn't feel right. So to say, if I live near a grocery store and it takes me like 2 minutes to go and grab my groceries from there, why I would need to ask someone to do this job for me in a smaller level, if you know what I mean, right? So I believe I'm a big fan of e-commerce. E-commerce made our life so much better. I just think that this last mile piece of the e-commerce is something that can be further improved upon. Because if we could have like a nearby pickup location in every single neighborhood, and it would take us 2 minutes to get there and pick up our next orders, that would increase the efficiency of carriers substantially, because for them it's all about the delivery density game. Now they cannot drive by your street and drop packages one by one. They can drop like 100 packages to pick up location, meaning their truck will not generate so much of the CO2 emission at the end of the day, meaning this entire concept becomes more and more efficient. And well, listen, the major problem of the e-commerce in general is the last mile delivery problem, because it's the most expensive one. So that is why we are doing what we are doing, because we believe it can be done in a way more efficient manner.
Well, this is an exciting big picture that you set it for us, is improving, changing, revolutionizing this last mile delivery as far as it comes for e-commerce. And in our last few minutes of our conversation here, I want to make sure that we at least touch on this idea of scaling secrets. And you mentioned a few problems, but as far as you scaling this company to where you've wanted it to go, to where it's going into the future, do you have any secrets to share with us that you've maybe learned the hard way about scaling a company?
Well, yeah, I mean, that depends a lot on the company and the product of the company. For us, as we started to focus very fast on mid-market and enterprise market, what we learned and still learning the hard way is the sales cycle, right? That is something that we didn't anticipate to be like that long in many cases. We still have like a lot of customers who now like postpone us to 2025 from the integration perspective, etc. So that's something that we kind of manage every single day. Now, on a bright side, right, something that we did not expect and that started to happen is those customers who started to use our solution, they became, and we are very grateful to them for that, they became our advocates. They become telling about us. They become like telling about us to their friends or their colleagues or to their colleagues in the other companies, right? So that's kind of word of mouth / partnership channel that started to work really well for us. And I mean, when you get to the meeting with a potential prospect and somebody already recommended you, that's whole other meeting. It's not just a cold demo. It's way better than that. So that was something that was pretty nice for us, and we enjoyed it today.
That's a nice place to be, right? A nice benefit to have these sort of brand evangelists, people that love what you created so much that they do a lot of the communicating for you. And so as far as some next steps here, right? You've come on here, you mentioned a lot of cool ideas, you've solve some problems for us. But as far as someone checking out you personally or via dot delivery or just whatever you have going on, if someone listened to our podcast today and they say, okay, I need to continue my education, I need to continue my process, where should someone go after listening to our podcast?
Well, it's probably our website or our YouTube channel that we just recently started. Alternatively, LinkedIn. That's where we share data. That's where we share those customer stories, right? That's where we share those anecdotes, and I think that's probably the best way to learn about buy online, pick up anywhere in general, and then at some point potentially think about via delivery. But we are really trying to educate market on this entire category right now.
And it is a cool idea. Buy online, pick up anywhere. It's Mitchell Nikitin. Find him on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, that last name is Nikitin.
Nikitin. Yeah.
Nikitin.
Yeah.
And the website is via.delivery. And as far as the YouTube channel, how can someone find that?
It's also via delivery on the YouTube channel.
Very cool. Via delivery on YouTube, find the website, contact Mitchell on LinkedIn. And as far as us ending our conversation in a really fun way with a bang instead of a whimper, I like to stump my guest a little bit and ask for a fun quote or lesson that has really helped them that can help us. So does anything come to mind here, Mitchell, as far as a fun quote or lesson to wrap things up?
Fun lesson? Oh, let me think about it. Probably the funniest part is when you have in your team, when you're building an entire product, if you are enjoying it and having fun while doing it, right? To have some atmosphere inside your team so that every single morning when you jump on this 8 a.m. call to get the updates and to get all that, you kind of get energy from these people, right? I'm not sure if it's fun, but it's definitely a fun in the process.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people draw these sports analogies to business, but that's what comes to mind when you talk about the energy, right? Like you're kicking a ball around or throwing a ball around, and what is that? It's a lot of like physical work, but when there's a lot of people involved and everyone's exciting, that you can feel the energy, and that's a great place to work, and that's something amazing to build when everyone is just excited together working as a team, with or without the sports analogies. And so via.delivery is the place to check out what Mitchell has created. Buy online, pick up anywhere, BOPA. So we'll see you at via.delivery. And thank you very much, Mitchell, for showing up and speaking up and giving us a lot of fun advice and ideas. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Robert.